Welcome back to Missouri.com, and this week in Missouri Politics Overtime. We're thrilled to get you this week's overtime session with our Senate District 23 debate. It's a debate in St. Charles County to replace Senator Dempsey, one of the hottest primaries in the state. Very glad to be joined again by businessman Bill Eigel, Judge Mike Carter, and Representative Van Zaire. Mr. Eigel, we'll start with you. Guns. There's a big push in the national media, mostly, to do gun control in response to these terrorist attacks. What can you do in Missouri to protect the Second Amendment?
Well, you're absolutely right. And the idea of gun control that is going to solve gun violence is incredibly flawed. Blaming a gun for violence is like blaming a fork for obesity. So I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, and I believe that the Second Amendment is one of those key principles that the Founding Fathers gave us as an option for our own personal security and as an option for tyranny, protection from against tyranny. Now, I'm a huntsman, I'm a concealed carry licensee, and I'm a military veteran. I'm going to support the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, I'm running against somebody in this race that has been backed by a group that's active in St. Charles County right now called Working America. Now, Working America has put an enormous amount of folks on the ground and money into the coffers of my opponents that's going to try to influence this particular election. This is important because they've admitted that they're backed by the AFL-CIO, they're based out of Washington, D.C., and they're a left-leaning organization. If my opponent wins this race, you can be sure that when she goes to the Senate, they're going to be leaning on her to vote against our Second Amendment privileges. And if it were up to me, I wouldn't bet my gun rights on what she's saying, which sounds good, versus what she'll actually do.
Representative Zaire, let's talk about gun control. Is there something you can do in the state of Missouri to push back some of the attacks on the Second Amendment?
Oh, yeah. You know, Bill's right. Our Founding Fathers were very wise in protecting our right to bear arms, and that can't be infringed upon at any cost. I've got an A rate. I'm the only candidate endorsed by the NRA with an A rating over the last 8 years. NRA trusts me to vote to support the right to bear arms. I worked in law enforcement. You know, you've got thugs running around hurting families and police officers. We have to protect the right for people to defend themselves, and that's critical. I've been endorsed by the St. Louis Police Officers Association. I've worked in law enforcement, I've lived it. I know how dangerous it can be. I support the Second Amendment 100%. My voting record shows that, and it will continue to show that in the Senate.
Judge Carter, Second Amendment rights. What can you do in the state to protect the onslaught against the Second Amendment?
Well, I like what I guess Representative Burleson has put through with regard to, lowering the restrictions with regard to holding and having, your concealed weapons on you in your car, on your person. As a judge, I make decisions. Sometimes people go to jail. We get to carry a gun. We don't even have to have a concealed carry permit. I have several handguns. I've had guns and shot with my father since I was, I guess, 3 years old. It's very important to me. Many people, I think, kind of hedge away from it, but Jefferson said the only defense against a tyrannical government is the right to bear arms. I think that that's an important facet of those things. I always have kind of struggled a little bit. I know I used to watch it very closely. I think it was Senator Keevan was part of it back in 1999. They put out a vote to the state of Missouri about conceal and carry, and it lost, right? And then we came back down, and the state government, the House and the Senate, were the ones who were able to then give us conceal and carry and kind of override the vote. And that kind of goes to what Ms. Zaire was saying a minute ago about when you put these taxes out to the folks about taxing the highways and trying to get more money for the highways. I don't know. If it seems like sometimes we put it out to the voter, and then if we don't like it, the General Assembly does what they want anyway. I liked it when it happened with conceal and carry, but with the tax.
That's your solution?
Yes.
Stand up. Representative Zaire, let's talk about abortion now. This session saw an amazing thing where there was an abortion clinic operating at the University of Missouri. What can you do to assure people in St. Charles County and throughout the state that the state's not going to be in the abortion business?
Well, I'm 100% pro-life. Life begins at conception, period. I've been fortunate enough to have the Missouri Right to Life endorsement over the last 8 years. I personally, as chair of the House Economic Development Committee, I have killed legislation that did not have protective pro-life language in it. And I'm proud of that. Missouri Right to Life trusts me to continue to protect life and the unborn. And as a female, I'd very much like to be the voice of Missouri Right to Life in the Senate.
Judge Carter, abortion rights.
My family, my parents had me when they were 15 or 16 years old. I know that there were certain people in my family who thought they were too young to have a baby at that time, and I'm glad that they decided to allow me to be here today during this debate, in fact. So it's something that's kind of near and dear to me. I'm 100% pro-life as well. I am the only lawyer here. I'm the only one who, as a judge, interprets laws and applies them every day. And as we in the Senate create and craft laws that are to protect life, we need to make sure that they can endure the challenges that we know come every single time. And I'm the only candidate in the Senate District 23 race that knows how to make a law that's bulletproof.
Mr. Igo, you thought it was some bizarre story or it was made up, but can you keep the University of Missouri and the state out of the abortion business?
Well, I think you can, because Missouri is the one that's sending a lot of money, and you can control the purse strings that go down to the University of Missouri. I'm pro-life. I have 2 young children. I'm a conservative Christian. I've been pro-life my entire life. I'm going to be a champion for pro-life, and I've also been endorsed by the Missouri Right to Life. Unfortunately, I think we're hearing once again an integrity problem with my opponent. When she says she's been endorsed by Missouri Right to Life for the past 8 years, it's not exactly true. She actually lost that endorsement in 2012 because she voted to enact MOSIRA. Now, MOSIRA was a law in 2012 that gave power to human cloning groups and other embryonic stem cell research groups, and she lost her endorsement for that. And I think that, again, I'm going back to the idea from the folks I've been talking to out in St. Charles County, they're very frustrated with career politicians who are saying one thing and then going down to Jefferson City and doing something else. And that's why I think we need new voices in Jefferson City.
Just let's talk about taxes. This year, the Senate spent 40 hours, the Senate you want to serve in, on a bill about bakers and things in gay marriages. They spent no time on Senator Schmidt's proposal for the largest tax cut in the state of Missouri. If you're elected to the Senate, where's your priority? Will you cut taxes?
I mean, as a business person, my family's been running small business since 1990. I came right out of high school, started selling real estate. I've had a law firm now since 2004. I know the importance of lower taxes, cutting bureaucracy, all the things that Mr. Igo said a little bit ago. It's a very, very high priority for me. In fact, one of my, on the back of that tax question, one of my proposals is that I would like to kind of get the employer out of the employee's paycheck. I don't know when it ever became the fact that we take our FICA and our withholdings federally and state out of the employee's paycheck and their union dues, because the right to work has come up a lot in this election. And it's my proposal that we give somebody who makes $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, $800 check, and then they can pay their union as much as they want. They can pay their taxes on their own to state and federal. And it's my thought that the electorate would be that much more engaged when they have to write their quarterly check out of their money and then see how much of my taxes go into my roads, how much of my taxes go into my school. I think that would engage them, and it'd be a lot better way to solve right to work and some things that have really.
Mr. Igo, the Senate you want to serve in spent 40 hours on a bill that had never affected a person in the history of the state. No time on Senator Schmidt's tax cut. If you're in the Senate, can you tell leadership, no, I want to cut taxes? Yes,
absolutely. And not only do I want to cut taxes, we need to look at spending as well. You know, again, I'm going to go back to the integrity issue. My opponents are saying all the right things when it comes to taxes and how we need lower taxes. But unfortunately, I'm running against somebody in this election that voted for the largest tax increase in the history of the state of Missouri with Amendment 7 a couple years ago. I have a different idea. I think we need to phase out the income tax. I think if we phase it out over 10 years, if we ask for some reasonable spending cuts that don't target services, they target waste, they target abuse, and they bring more accountability to the dollars that we're already spending in Jefferson City. You can't sit on this stage and say you're for tax cuts when you've voted for tax increases, when you've also voted for the largest spending increases in the history of the state for the past 8 years. My opponent has never met a fiscal account appropriations bill that she hasn't voted for. This is not the person that I would trust that's going to actually lower our taxes and regulations moving forward. And as I talk to people in St. Charles County, they are disappointed that we have career politicians that are saying one thing and then continuing to go down to Jefferson City and doing something else.
Representative, there was an interesting dynamic last session. You watched it from the House side. A lot of time spent on things that weren't tax cuts. Senator Schmidt's tax cut was never even brought to the floor. Are you someone that can go to leadership and say, whoa, 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 we're here to cut taxes. That's what we're going to do?
You know, absolutely. I've had 8 years experience, and I think that's important. It's not a career politician. It's important to do that. You have to have the experience to know how to get things done in Jefferson City. It's just the experience matters. Once again, I voted for the the first tax cut in 100 years in Missouri, and that's significant. I said it before, government has to live within its means. I've had experience in the appropriations cutting appropriations, creating efficiencies in the bureaucracy so taxpayers' money can go around. There's more to go around. We've reformed welfare. We're saving millions of dollars in welfare reform. And just to set the record clear on the right to life endorsement, I was rated pro-life that year. I did not lose. I still had the support of Missouri Right to Life.
Mr. Heigl, last question. In the race, you've talked a lot about it already, but what sets you apart as the person that should replace Tom Dempsey in the Senate?
Well, I'm the only one with a life experience as both a military veteran. I've gotten to go overseas and see firsthand what happens when big government dips into tyranny. And I've also got small business experience. For the past 10 years in St. Charles, I've been running a small business, actually creating jobs that the career politicians are talking about while they're down in Jefferson City. My wife Amanda and I struggled significantly to make it through those difficult times in 2008, 2009. In the meantime, we were hearing politicians talk about how they were going to help us, while at the same time they were voting for tax increases, they were voting for more regulations. And I share a lot of the frustrations that I think many folks in St. Charles have. We have politicians, career politicians, that are going down to Jefferson City, saying one thing and doing another. And yes, I agree with my opponent that experience does matter. I guess it matters what experience you're looking for. Do you want a career politician that has 40 years experience, or do you want someone who's never run for office before, is a small business owner, and a military veteran? That's really the choice in this election.
Just Carter, what sets you apart in this race?
Well, primarily, I'm running a self-funded campaign. I'm not taking any campaign welfare like my opponents. It's funny, Mr. Heigl has said integrity and says one thing and does another with regard to experience, but he must have already gotten a really good start on his political behaviors, because his website says he's running his campaign on friends and family, and that's it. Yep, he's got $100,000 contributions from people who don't even live in our district, one single individual. So he's saying his friends and family. Well, of course, the $100,000 will buy a friend. I mean, I'm sure it does down in Jeff City, no doubt. And he'll answer the phone for those friends. I don't have any $100,000 friends. My other opponent has big union boss friends who've given her $50,000 or $100,000. They're beholden. They can't do anything they want. All the questions you've asked during this talk today, they say what they'll do when they get down there, but who are they going to pick the phone up for? Who are they going to meet for lunch? I've tried to do all of those things with senators and representatives and governors and lieutenant governors. And if you're not the girl or the boy that gave them $100,000 to play in their sandbox, you're not at the front of the line. If I'm down at the Senate, you're right at the front of the line with everybody else, because I don't have anybody who's given me $100,000. So that really distinguishes me from my opponents.
Representative Zara, we talked a lot about the race. What sets you apart as the person that should replace Tom Dempsey in the Senate?
Well, quite honestly, I stand on my experience. I stand on living in the community for 40 years, raising my family. My entire career has been in St. Charles County. The last 8 years, I have experience in the House, and I know how to get things done in Jefferson City. I can do it in the Senate as well. One of my opponents moved into the district just about a year ago to run. Now, how can anyone know the heart of a community in just a year? In just a year, you can't do it. And I absolutely agree with Mike that well, my door's always been open to you.
Yeah, we have talked.
Yeah. We're not, we're not all corrupt politicians. Most of us are very, very good people. But I stand by my record. I stand by my endorsements. I stand by my ability to be seen as a person who can work with other people and get things done. I'm not an obstructionist. I want to get things done, and I have gotten things done in Jefferson City for the people of St. Charles County and for the people of Missouri, and I can continue to do that in the Senate.
Representative Van Zare, Judge Mike Carter, Businessman Bill Heigl, thank you very much for joining us. Thank all of you for joining us, not only on This Week in Missouri Politics, but here on This Week in Missouri Politics Overtime. Hot race. Next week we'll have the Senate District 15 contenders in. We look forward to seeing you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.